Hello, everyone. I'm super excited of hosting today's space. I think it's the first broader ecosystem call that I'm participating in regards to XRPFi awakening, if I'm correct. Um, and today we have an interesting, let's say, preliminary gathering before the launch of Firelight. It's taking place within 2 days. So we decided to invite, of course, on our end, Hugo and Drew, which is our DeFi specialist. But more importantly, perhaps for today, are the people from our protocols, right? From our core DeFi protocols, people from Enosis, people from Spardex, um, Stratex as well, Spectra, and of course, Firelight and let me see if I think I'm forgetting Kinetics. Of course, Kinetics. So much FXRP is being supplied right now in Kinetics, so nobody can forget. Um, Hugo, I'm going to start with you. How are you doing today?
Very good, thank you. Busy day.
Busy day, I can imagine. Preparing everything. And let me check out the speakers now. I see people from everywhere except from Firelight, so should be almost ready to start. In
How are
the
you
meantime,
doing? How are
Hugo,
you doing? That's more important.
uh,
I've been
that's
following.
more important.
I've been following your posts, and they're excellent.
Thank you so much, Hugo. Working hard to get our ecosystem, pushing forward. A lot of energy goes into this, and I think that I'm super proud of the work that we are doing and how the builders' energy is like at peak. I know that the market is bad. I know how people feel. Myself, I cannot say it doesn't affect me at all. It does, but being inside a community of builders, I think is the best because they have a completely different perspective, right? They are focusing more on the fundamentals. And if you look at the data of Flare, we're just doing amazing.
I mean, look, the way I see it is the only reason it should affect you is if you think that crypto's never recovering. Otherwise, price is down because of, I don't know, whatever. Maybe Japan, maybe a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe everyone just woke up a bit drunk from Thanksgiving. Um, but it really only matters it really only matters if you think that crypto's never coming back. If you think crypto's never coming back, don't be here in the first place.
Yeah, those are wise words that I had to learn over time because it's like if you start looking at the charts on a daily basis, and of course you will open crypto Twitter on this app and everybody will talking about it. It's like very hard to not pay attention at all, right? So you need to kind of train yourself in order to see beyond. And like you mentioned, like right now we're at how much? Like 3 trillion in terms of like the total market cap. So it's like, very early if you ask me.
I mean, look, I suppose the way I look at it from Flair's perspective, I'd probably have a very different view if I was, if we were running a different L1. But, we launched XRP, FXRP, you know, I think in September. So basically 6 weeks ago at this point in time. We've now got 66 million units of XRP on Flare. When you build a product, you look for product market fit. There have been other people who've attempted to build, XRP based products. There have been bridges to Ethereum. There have been bridges to other networks. There are bridges to other networks. There are bridges to the sidechain. There are bridges to Cosmos. No one has come even 1%, maybe 2% of what we've achieved in 6 weeks. So, Flare, the way I look at it as the sort of head of the project is, Flare is demonstrating very clearly product market fit, and the market will do what the market wants, but ultimately what you want from a product over the long term is product market fit, something that people use. And then when the market goes up, you do well.
Exactly. And I would argue that if you look at the data, despite everything that is happening on the markets, XRPFi is on the rise, activity on Flare is looking good. And actually, in this regard, I wanted to check in with Drew, maybe our head of DeFi, to know more about his perspective on this. How are you doing today, Drew?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing well. I personally didn't get too drunk over Thanksgiving, so I am not the one puking your coins, but yeah, I'm doing very well.
Awesome. It's nice to hear that that you're healthy. And in regards to the healthy of the XRPFi ecosystem within Flare, what can you tell us from your perspective? How do you see things evolving from where we are?
Yeah, I think we have quite a next few months in front of us. We have Firelight, which will be going live with pre-deposits very soon here, which will then mint staked XRP, and then we'll have Spectra available to then essentially buy extra points or lock in a fixed yield based on that staked XRP. So we have that coming, and then you have PTs that will then float within our ecosystem, which will be very interesting to see how that's used as collateral, of course. So I'm very excited for the next couple months, and the overall progress that we're making in our DeFi ecosystem is very, very enticing.
For the listeners, what are PTs and how do they work?
Yeah, so Spectra is a yield trading app, and they will be launching on Flare shortly here. And essentially what you can do is that in this yield trading app, if you have a specific token that is yield bearing, let's say something like S-Flare or staked XRP, you can deposit it into Spectra and you can acquire a PT and a YT. The PT is your principal token plus a fixed amount of yield. And then the YT essentially trades the amount of yield or the excess yield, which allows you to yield trade, which is a bit more speculative, but gives you access to yield, and essentially allows people to get fixed yield and then also trade the variable yield on top of it, depending on whether they're bullish on the project or not.
Hey, I think I can hear you guys now, but Drew, you should just always talk about Spectra. I don't have to know. I'll have you in for every space.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Absolute Unit. But if you want to build on that, that'd be huge.
I think you did a great job. All that I'll say is, when it comes to the PTs and the YTs, like it can be daunting, especially for a lot of people, but the easiest way to think about it is a PT is just a way to lock in a fixed rate, just like Drew said, just like Thanos said. Is if you want to lock in, let's say if you go on the Spectra app and you see a fixed APY of 12% on, let's say, staked XRP when it launches. This is all just, I'm making up a scenario right now to be clear. You buy the PT, you're pretty much locking in that 12% if you hold it till expiry. Now you can always trade out of that position at a later time and maybe not reap the full 12% fixed APY. But that's how that works. And then how YTs work is you're essentially buying the yield from that many. So if you were to buy 1,000 YT dash staked XRP, what you're buying is the yield from 1,000 YT or from 1,000 staked XRP. And, the reason why this is like such a powerful thing, especially in DeFi, is typically if there's points programs, if there's any sort of like speculative yield component, you can kind of lever up on exposure to the points program. So like if you're bullish on Firelight, if you're bullish on XRP yield in general, or you're bullish on, the growth of, essentially what the underlying is doing, which I don't know if I can mention that, but it's pretty cool. Then that's a great way to gain that exposure. You can also just LP in the pool and just gain passive exposure to everything. We say LPing is the last thing we'll say, LPing in the pool. Like if you're to just take 1,000 staked XRP, put it into the Spectra LP, it's just like holding the underlying position plus trading fees plus any, points boost plus Spectra emissions plus maybe Flare emissions as well. So it's kind of like pick your own path there, and you can choose what kind of risk appetite you have, what you're most bullish on, or if you just want to get straight XRP yield, the easiest way to do that is with PTs. So, yeah.
That was super awesome. It's actually one of the topics that we're going to discuss today, but I see that Hugo has his hand raised. Hugo, you want to add something?
No, I unraised it ages ago. I was just going to say it's very similar to like stripping the coupons from a bond.
Exactly. It's like a zero coupon bond is a PT.
Interesting. And we certainly are going to go back to this topic, because the question about like how does this work and the risk involved is like explain me this like I'm 5 years old is for sure something that is coming up. A lot of people ask, and Dhruv and you guys today did amazing already explaining it. But I think that it's worth, checking in one more time. But before moving into that, I just wanted to provide a little bit more of context to our audience, because what I've noticed is that, okay, we have this full DeFi ecosystem around XRP via FXRP, and we do have obviously users that are just coming in and they want to know, how do I get yield in the simplest, safest way? That's one of the questions for newbies. Then for more advanced people, they are looking into Spectra. I'm pretty sure they are looking into Firelight, Spectra, and how to deploy more advanced strategies. And in between, you have all of these users that are, already holding FXRP, probably supplying some on Kinetic, and trying to learn about how they can get more exposure in a safe way. So we have this broad spectrum, and I wanted to touch base with Hugo to learn from his perspective about the evolution of XRPFi from the moment it was originated, like the vision, right, up until now. How do you see things evolving?
I mean, I think it's, two tracks, or, there's been effectively our aspiration as a team, as a project, to effectively allow people to use their XRP in a programmable way, right? Well, yeah, XRP and, later other tokens like Bitcoin and the other very large non-smart contract tokens, to be able to use those tokens in a programmable way such that they can partake in the same kind of things that everyone has been partaking in for a long time in other smart contract enabled ecosystems. So that's always been the genesis of the project. And what has happened as we've been building it is that there's been huge innovation in the smart contract DeFi space. So on networks like Ethereum, Solana, Cosmos, you name it, there's been huge innovation. So what's really great for us is because we chose the EVM approach, a fully programmable smart contract language. Unlike if we were to build like a network that had sort of fixed functionality, we've been able to build on our track, which is let's get something done with XRP and Bitcoin and all these other high value tokens, whilst other people have been innovating in other areas. And because Flare is fully programmable, we can effectively bring those innovations immediately to the chain without having to change any aspect of the chain. And I think this is absolutely key thing for people to understand about the full programmability that the EVM environment and Flare offers. So that's kind of the evolution and the continuation and where we are today. So what Flare is bringing is essentially full programmability for assets that don't have that, starting with XRP, and being able to immediately harness the innovation that has taken place over the last 7-8 years in DeFi.
Yeah, and one thing that I always like to highlight is that at Flare, how we had handled to build this entire ecosystem around FXRP. Of course, there are network effects, and I think that one particular example is this space that we're having right now. So moving forward, I see that our guest from Firelight also joined it. Uh, so I'm looking forward to touch base with you. Who do we have here? Can you tell
Yes,
us how are you doing today?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, all good.
Great. Perfect. Well, yeah, so very nice to meet everybody. I'm Connor Sullivan. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Firelight. I joined a couple weeks ago. Prior to joining Firelight, I was at Fireblocks for 5 years. So some of you might know Fireblocks, or largest institutional digital asset platform, working with 2,000 plus institutions. I work there on the corporate strategy side, working with large institutions that were deploying billions into DeFi. So, great experience there. And then prior to my time at Fireblocks, I was an underwriter in the reinsurance industry for 8 years. So, really Firelight kind of combines the two things that I really know well, and love, crypto and insurance, right? And, we really are looking to kind of build out, an institutional grade DeFi cover, protocol, which Firelight will be. And, I'm coming on as chief strategy officer, but we're, really being incubated by the Centaura team, who I'm sure you know well as well, who, are managing billions, as a risk manager for major institutions in the DeFi space, right? So, the Centaura team brings a lot of credibility, connections, and also just an understanding of risk that is really, bar none in the industry right now. So yeah, just wanted to do a quick intro, and then, happy to get into more details around, what Firelight solves for, what we're really looking to launch, this week with phase 1, and then what, phase 2 and, next year looks like, if that sounds good.
Yes, that sounds amazing. So maybe let's try to explain in very simple terms what is the problem that you guys are solving and how you're addressing this, and then like talking about the 2 stages, right? Because people have been asking about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to. So, in very simple terms, and I know, when you're talking about insurance and DeFi cover, you can easily kind of go down a rabbit hole and get, lost in the details. But I think, what my job is, and what I think what Firelight does a good job of is really trying to simplify this, offering this value and then the risk that we're, eventually underwriting. So in very simple terms, Firelight turns idle XRP into productive asset that earns yield while helping secure blue chip DeFi protocols. Really, and what that security means is, smart contract on-chain risks such as smart contract hacks, Oracle failures, bridge issues, and also economic attacks, right? So liquidation cascades, all of the things that you've, likely seen happening very frequently over the last couple months. That's what Firelight is built for. And that's why we think, the timing and the demand for this type of product, has never been better, right? Obviously it's really hard to see a lot of these events, over the last couple of months, but we just think that really just solidifies the use case and why Firelight, launching now is so important. So really what we're building at Firelight is a platform to connect idle assets like XRP to the ever-growing demand for DeFi cover, right? From protocols like Aave, Morpho, Euler, right? And, what's powering that is institutional grade modeling, which has already been developed by the Centaura team. I'm working with that team to really kind of refine that and put into insurance context. But, we have the benefit of 1,000+ risk models in production that are managing billions, for top institutions today. So really think, the work that the Centaura team now has done over the last couple of years, now connecting that and putting that into an insurance DeFi cover context, is a perfect marriage, right? So that's what really Firelight is going to begin solving starting next week with phase 1 pre-deposits opening up.
So, okay, speaking about the pre-deposits, I've seen a lot of questions about the points, right? And the fact that I think we did have some sort of whitelisting before or some sort of campaign. I actually participated, now that I remember. But yeah, would be nice to touch base on that and learn more about like what's coming in regards to this.
Sure. Yeah. So, you can think of phase 1 as, we're opening up the pre-deposit vaults this week. There will be more communications and, direct communication, especially to the whitelisted users that, have already expressed interest on, how to access, right? So at Firelight.finance, we have the Git book, launching this week that'll be publicly available with all the details. But really what phase 1 is, looking at pre-deposit vaults, zero slashing risk. You put your FXRP into the Firelight launch vault, or the Firelight launch vault, you receive your staked XRP, and we're going to have different deposit caps, so the points will really be tied back to if you were within the first deposit cap, which is going to be launching this week. And then as we meet to those deposit caps, we'll be kind of ramping those up over the next, month or two. And, really the points what points you get allocated or, you know, related to which deposit cap that you came in on. So if you start this week and you're in the first deposit cap, you'll receive, you know, 2x points boost, and it'll kind of work up from there as we you know, release those deposit caps, right? So all that information and communication is going to be coming out this week. And I think it's important just to note that, you know, there's no slashing risk within phase one. You'll be able to just really, you know, park your staked XRP there, you know, get passively accrued points. And then phase two will open up early next year, and that will be the feature complete DeFi protocol where you can then use your staked XRP to, you know, basically provide DeFi cover to blue chip protocols like Aave and Morpho that we are, you know, and currently, you know, getting deals in place, you know, to basically ensure the major blue chip vaults across, you know, the biggest, you know, protocols that you know and love, right? So a lot more details going to be coming out about, you know, who the launch partners are, which protocols, but you can think of Firelight as really being embedded at the protocol layer with all the blue chip, you know, lending pools out there.
Amazing. And one thing that I've seen people also wondering is about like the potential risk associated. Maybe we should go down and explain what is this slashing risk that is not going to be present now and how it's going to impact in the future. From my perspective, and I think that this is kind of general knowledge, right? Staking is one of the most secure ways to gain yield from an asset, right?
Exactly. That's right. So, you know, what we're going to be doing over the next month or two is putting out a lot of, you know, collateral understanding of what this risk actually is. And I think our job is to really get people comfortable with, you know, what it means to, you know, stake your XRP and put it behind DeFi risk, right? So what is that DeFi risk? We kind of split it up into two main categories. There's technical risk and there's economic risks. On the technical side, you can think of that as smart contract tax, right? So, you know, we're looking at the Centaur models and then working with, you know, the likes of, you know, some of the larger, you know, blockchain auditors out there and really kind of diving deep into how many times they've been audited, how, you know, are the auditors reputable, you know, at what frequency have these audits been updated, and really kind of going deep on the technical risk and the smart contract vulnerability side of things. And then on the other side, there's economic risks, right? So it's just governance attacks, liquidation failures, a lot of stuff that you've seen, you know, been happening frequently over the last couple of months, right? So we kind of look at those two main categories, and we're building, you know, a back-tested institutional grade risk model, kind of taking those two into account and building, you know, a capital efficient model where we're taking in, you know, low yielding assets like XRP and putting them to work behind some of these risks. And I think, you know, the way Anthony, our CEO, likes to explain it, which I think really helps visualize this for people, is, you know, you can't right now put your XRP into an Aave or Morpho pool. And I think if you could, a lot of, you know, people would gladly do that, right? And when you do that, if you're depositing your XRP, if you're able to, into an blue chip Aave market or blue chip Morpho market, you're already assuming a lot of these same risks that Firelight would be protecting, right? So now you have that opportunity to gain likely better yield than you would by just depositing into Aave or Morpho and assuming the same risk, right? So if you think about it that way, it's a pretty compelling thing, right? So it's no different than just, you know, depositing your XRP or you know, into Aave or Morpho, but now you're getting better yield and you're assuming the same technical and economic risks, right? So that's how we really try to visualize this for, you know, the LPs, the collateral holders, right? So it's a much more, you know, scalable and probably much more a better use of, putting your XRP to work behind Firelight versus, directly doing this in, the DeFi context.
Just for the listeners' context of what that means, who may not be familiar with Aave or Morpho, what are the sort of rough sizes of Aave and Morpho markets, in terms of the amount of assets that are deployed to those markets, and kind of who are the people that, they would know that do deploy to these kind of markets that aren't just, individuals. I just want the audience to get a sense of like how established these markets are.
Yeah, Hugo, that's a great, point to point out. I mean, right now, you can look at Aave as, the largest almost digital bank on earth, right? And I think they've started to kind of put out, if you go on their website, they list every single, bank in the world, your, mom and pop commercial bank all the way up to JP Morgan's, and Aave is sitting there in one of the top, 50 banks in the world by deposit size, right? So, right now Aave is approaching almost 100 billion in assets. And then you have others like Morpho and Euler that are, probably growing faster. They don't have as much as, Aave's been around and it's been tested, has the largest TVL, but others like Morpho that are integrating into the front ends of the largest fintech apps in the world, like Coinbase and Crypto.com, right? So a little bit different model, but huge scale and huge distribution through some of the biggest crypto exchanges and fintechs in the world, right? So, the scale that we're talking about is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. But one thing that is, holding back that scale on their side is, as more traditional institutions and honestly just, users that are used to that banking experience where they do have that FDIC backstop or the insurance backstop. That part has been missing. And that's really what Firelight is looking to solve, right? We're not looking to, go after the degens who are already very comfortable taking on huge amount of risks in DeFi. They've been doing that. Nothing's going to change the way that they operate, but the 300 to 500 billion that's sitting on the sidelines, looking to deploy, but needs that assurance, like, a FDIC like backstop or insurance being embedded into the protocol layer. That's what Firelight is going to be, bringing to the ecosystem.
Awesome. So to be blunt and to give a synopsis of that, Firelight is looking to ensure protocols that have already hundreds of billions of dollars in them. These are blue chip protocols that people already trust with hundreds of billions. And the Firelight protocol is being built with the idea that if it's successful, it leads to hundreds, if not trillions, more capital coming on chain. And one can imagine what that means for Firelight itself.
Exactly. And that's 100% right. Yeah, we think that insurance is, really the unlock to kind of bring in that next wave of capital. We've seen that, not just in crypto, but in every kind of, scale up in different markets. When I started as a reinsurance underwriter, cyber risk was this new thing that nobody could really figure out. And now the cyber risk insurance market is in the hundreds of billions of dollars, right? There's a lot of similarities there. And what you really need is to bring in, people that really understand risk, people that understand how institutions think about risk and really kind of speak in their language, right? So obviously we're a crypto native team, but the Centaura team and myself come from institutional backgrounds. And, I think what we need to get to that next phase is really bring in institutional, risk underwriting and understanding of what, those users on the other side that are looking to deploy need to get comfortable with.
100%. You can't just be crypto native only these days. You've got to have both sides of the coin.
Exactly. And I think that's, we have, with the Centaura team and myself that, that pedigree there. So that's why we're really excited. We think the timing couldn't be better. The conversations we're having, with the Flare ecosystem, but also with the protocols and, the large users of the protocols is, this isn't a nice to have. This is a must, right? So the demand is there, and, we're happy to be able to connect that demand with a huge supply of XRP.
Amazing. So we know already that probably hundreds of trillions are waiting there. There is a demand. We want security first, right? And speaking of on-chain actions, because I'm looking to transition here and talk a little bit more about the rest of the ecosystem, I would like to touch base with Alexius from Spardex. And if you could give us a quick intro to Spardex, how people can utilize FXRP already and how they can expect to utilize stXRP in the near future once Firelight launches.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here. Wish the markets were a bit greener, but that's okay. I'm sure in a little bit of time that I should turn around, and I'm sure we're all here for the long term as well. So yeah, quick intro to SparkDEX. Essentially, SparkDEX is a decentralized exchange. Think of it as kind of as a liquidity layer to the chain, right? Kind of the engine that allows the facilitation of swapping of different assets, trading, and features such as liquidations to happen. So you need a decentralized exchange on chain to allow for this liquidity layer, to allow other DeFi Lego blocks, projects like Firelight, projects like Kinetics, etc., to facilitate the swaps of stXRP, other assets. So there's liquidity available on chain to facilitate liquidations of different assets for lending markets that are on chain. So a couple of really cool and interesting things that people will be able to do with the FXRP and also shortly stXRP from Firelight will be LPing on the DEX in a decentralized manner. So imagine you get your stXRP and you pair that with FXRP and you create that LP on SparkDEX. By doing that, you'll be able to obtain trading fees, so different rewards, providing your liquidity to facilitate these swaps. And you should also be able to earn some rewards, some Flare rewards as well. So that'll be one cool use case coming up shortly when stXRP is available on chain. Another really cool thing that we're looking to do as well, once there's been a sufficient amount of liquidity built up as well, will be allowing users to deposit as collateral their stXRP into our perps market as well. So you can deposit your XRP into the perps market, which will allow other people to use their stXRP and to allow them to essentially take out leverage trading positions. And for those that deposit, they'll be able to accrue different rewards in terms of trading fees and incentives as well.
Awesome. I think this was a nice intro to what you can do in principle once Firelight goes live, what you can do with these assets. And looking into perhaps the future, what is kind of the main thing that you're looking forward? Because we see that the Flare ecosystem keeps evolving. We will have Spectra joining us pretty soon. Who knows what else is coming? Maybe Drew will give us some more alpha. But coming from your perspective, what is something specifically that you are really, really looking forward to?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're looking to achieve with SparkDEX is essentially to become this all-in-one encompassing DeFi hub, where users will be able to come to our front end and interact with essentially all the main protocols on Flare from our domain, right? From our UI. So users won't have to leave and open up different tabs on the site. So they can just have everything at their fingertips coming to SparkDEX. So, we'll be looking to do a lot of integrations, a lot of partnerships with all the main protocols on the Flare ecosystem, which is something really exciting and I'm really looking forward to. Personally, one of the things I'm really looking forward to as well that I'm pretty excited about will be our governance. So, we have launched our token at the moment. Essentially, you can stake that and earn a share of all the different revenue sources that we have. We streamline 50% back to token holders that stake and 50% buys up Spark token and burns that. But something I'm really looking forward to is governance, which, will really activate the community. Their voices will be heard, and in a more direct way, they can essentially lead and direct the Spark protocol to go down the ways that the community wants.
Interesting. I'm really looking forward to everything related to governance. I just like to learn and participate on those things. It feels nice to be on chain and have a say on anything that is related to big DeFi protocols such as you guys. So moving forward, since we are a little bit tight on time, and by the way, I want to give a quick shout out to Luminite as well. That is incubated by Spardex, as far as I understand. You guys are doing an amazing job simplifying the user experience in general. I know that today you announced F swaps, and I would encourage people to check it out. It's like very simple way to go and move assets across multiple chains, including XRP. So I don't know. I think that it's worth paying attention if you're someone that is moving funds on chain constantly, like I am. So moving forward, I want to talk with Darren from Enosis. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
Good. I'm wondering, guess what I'm wondering about Enosis? When CDP?
When CDP? We are looking not this week. It will not be this week. This week goes to Firelight. We want all focus on that for everyone to have a chance to learn about Firelight and start participating in Firelight. We are looking at post this week. I can say that much.
Spicy. That's interesting. So, okay, maybe let's take a step back, and explain, as in 5 years old, what is CDP and why should people care about?
So, Enosis Loans is the name of the protocol. It's a friendly fork of Liquidity V2, which is a successful protocol on the Ethereum network and has some other forks elsewhere. We are bringing that protocol to Flare specifically to be the first CDP backed by XRP. A CDP is a collateralized debt position protocol. Effectively, you're able to supply your FXRP or wrapped Flare to start with as collateral and borrow against that. The borrowing mechanism is different than a traditional lend to borrow in that the counterparty to your debt is the protocol itself. Rather than borrowing tokens that someone else has put up as lendable tokens, you actually mint a stablecoin from the protocol itself that is collateralized by your debt tokens. What that allows is you're able to take that value from your XRP, from your Flare, without having to sell those assets. Those assets remain in the protocol. They can still accrue yield. They can grow in value. But you now have a stable coin that you can use for either leveraging up, purchasing other assets. You can use those to help stabilize the protocol. You can use them in LPs on our DEX or elsewhere. Eventually, the use case will grow into lending as well on other protocols. But yeah, it effectively lets you borrow against your FXRP, against your Flare, and access the value that's stored in those assets without having to sell them.
Got it. That's an interesting use case. And in regards to Firelight's launch, what is something that you're really looking forward? I know that you guys are also kind of like DeFi savvy, so I just wanted to learn more about your perspective and opportunities and whatnot.
Yeah, so we'll be watching the growth of Firelight and stXRP. We'll be talking with them as they grow, and at some point we do anticipate adding stXRP as a collateral choice for minting in the loans protocol. So you'll be able to mint against FXRP or stXRP. We're trying to keep things as focused on XRP as possible, but there will be Flare options such as wrapped Flare and S Flare as well. But yeah, we're excited to see that come in because it's always nice having yield earning assets that are used as collateral. That's always nice to have so that you have not only price appreciation, but you're actually earning yield on your collateral against your debt.
which goes a long way to helping pay off debt over time as well. So that's something that we're excited to see. And yeah, I mean, eventually when we get big enough, it'll be interesting to look into, using Firelight for what it's supposed to be, which would be, insurance for the protocol itself.
Okay, that's interesting. So from a user's perspective, at some point, maybe they will have to choose whether they want to supply FXRP or stXRP. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, they could choose one, they could choose both. They can supply whatever assets they have, when it comes to that spread. Yeah.
Got it. That's interesting. I'm gonna explore further to see if I can come up with a framework on how to decide. Because as I keep diving deeper into the XRPFi movement at Flare, of course it gets a little bit more complicated. And I think that a lot of users are looking for like very simple solutions. But I think that it's gonna be fine because I've seen all of our builders paying attention a lot to education and improving the user interfaces and whatnot. So congrats on that to everyone. Hmm. Next, I want to move forward and talk with our friends from Kinetics. Jake, how are you today?
I am fantastic, but how are you? How's this been going for you?
So far, so good. Super happy about having all of our builders here. And by the way, a shout out to the Flare, to the marketing team at Flare and to our intern for coordinating all of this. It wasn't easy, let me tell you that. So Kinetic, how should I get started with Kinetic if I have my XRP?
Well, I guess the easiest thing to do, right? The first step that it's not super complicated is you can supply it. You can supply your FXRP to Kinetic, and you will earn. This is one of those things where you start with something simple and then it's going to get a little more complicated, just because when it comes to a lending market, if I was explaining this to someone for the first time, you supply stuff, you borrow stuff. It's very similar to how banks handle loans in that you pay interest on them. The difference is there's not a specific due date, right, that you have to pay back the entirety of the loan. If you keep your balance in good standing, meaning that you have more collateral supplied than you have assets borrowed, everything's fine. You don't need to pay it back ever, theoretically. Most people want to eventually clear that up, but it is possible to leave your assets in the protocol, have a borrow out, and if everything remains in good standing, you can keep it going. So it's a little more active, right, than a traditional loan. There's not as many meetings compared to a traditional loan, quite not as much paperwork, which I see as a benefit personally. When you have your FXRP, you can supply it right into Kinetic, and you'll immediately be earning some yield. Let me go over some specific numbers for you folks. If you go to app.kinetic.market, the first thing that'll pop up is our market page, which has all our assets. It has the APY, it has how much is supplied, has how much is borrowed. And my favorite feature, if you expand the menu, click on the asset, you can see, well, not just my favorite feature, but quite a few people's favorite feature. You can see the current borrow cap. That's something that comes up quite a lot, as a lot of people see these incentives and they wish to borrow more so they can supply those incentives, and they're very interested in the borrow cap. That's a little thing. If you're taking the same asset, supplying it, borrowing it, and then resupplying it, that, my friends, is a little thing called looping. I also wanted to take this opportunity of talking to the Flare community to remind everyone that when it comes to USDT0, Flare and us have implemented a looping curbing policy. So if you are supplying USDT0 on Kinetic, either in the primary market or in the ISO market, ISO just means isolated, as it's isolated from the main market. We tried to be cool with the terminology there, ISO. But some people get confused. It just means isolated. It's very simple. But if you borrow USDT0 in either of those markets while also supplying it, you will not get R flare for that. So just wanted to put that out there. I have to repeat that a lot. Some people had a rude awakening to that the last time incentives were given out a few days ago. I expect that will continue for a bit as people get up to speed with that. Why are we trying to do that? Well, it's pretty simple. When you just let people continually loop the same assets and, get incentives on those same assets, it depletes your incentives, which, is hard if you want to keep giving incentives out to people and new people and not the same money over and over again. I think that, is fairly clear. So I guess the simplest thing is if you have an asset, whether if it's FXRP, if it's USDT0, if it's USDC, or any of our other assets, you can supply it. It's simple. You don't need to enable it as collateral to earn APY on it. The majority of the APY you're earning is going to be in R-Flare. If you hover over the APY number on desktop or on mobile, if you click the little tooltip's it's a little lowercase I with a circle around it. If you click that, you'll see two figures. One is supply APY, which is that's the amount of your asset that is being added to your balance every few minutes or so. And then you'll see distribution APY, and that's R-Flare. The way R-Flare works, I'm basically just trying to go through a lot of my frequently asked questions here. The way R-Flare works is it's reward flare. Essentially, it's a reward token. On Kinetic and on other protocols, you earn it, you accrue it, right, from supplying throughout the month or more specifically throughout the rewards epoch. There's a wonderful blog post called Guide to R-Flare, published by Flare, that I would love if people check that out and read it, that goes over epoch dates and some more information. But you earn over that epoch, and then the next epoch is when you can claim your R-Flare from the Flare portal. Some people see like, oh, my R-Flare, it's gone. It's not gone. It's just that you've moved to the next epoch. You're now earning for the next epoch. Just wait. Usually it's the same day. It'll be sent through the R-Flare portal. Everything's okay. Every month it's, people who are new freak out, which honestly is a good thing because it shows that every month we have new people coming in. I might have railroaded you into basically doing a tutorial. So, feel free to ask me another question.
I mean, I had some other questions, but you were like super clear. So the only question that I have, which is actually from one of our community members, is what is the plan for stXRP once Firelight is live?
Now, this might shock you. I want everybody to hold on to their seats. If you don't have a shirt on, I recommend you keep it on. Pants, optional. But I want you to be ready and braced for this. We are going to add stXRP as a market on Kinetic. You will be able to supply it. You will be able to borrow it. As for when, we're going to try to get it up as soon as we can. As soon as we can.
Fair enough. No hard dates on that, and I respect that. Because I know that you
hard dates are tough in this business.
Yeah, it is. So no worries about it. Thank you so much, Jake. Now, because of time, I have to keep moving forward. Wow, it's been an amazing space. Time goes flying, really. Now, back to Spectra. Maybe, okay, you explained the Spectra already in very simple terms, I think. So my next question would be, what are you expecting in terms of behavior of from the users at the beginning, right? Because we have people that are new to this, so I don't know really where are you landing in terms of expectations or something specifically that you want to incentivize in terms of like user action.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll say I kind of just want to incentivize people to just choose their own path and just to learn more. If you're not very familiar with yield trading, it's a huge industry in TradFi. Multiple trillions of dollars, and there's so much that you can do, and we're still kind of even in the infancy within DeFi. So I would just recommend learning more. There's so much that, if you have any like theses or if you just like XRP, I mean, LPing in the pool is probably the easiest way to, like LPing in a Spectra pool is probably the easiest way to gain exposure. I'd say the second easiest thing, if maybe you're just more excited about getting the yield, buying the PTs is always great. And, as we get PTs listed on some of the lending protocols that have been mentioned here, looping that PT stXRP is always a great play, just like Jake outlined a minute ago. But yeah, and then obviously buying YTs, I'm a huge bull on just like checking the implied APY, which if you go on the Spectra site and you just pull up any asset, you can check the implied APY versus what the actual base APY is of that yield bearing token. So when stXRP goes live on Spectra, on Flare itself, you'll see, like a chart on there. It'll show you the implied APY, and I'll keep this relatively short. I'm sorry, because you mentioned there's lack of time, but you can check the implied APY. That's essentially what the market is valuing the APY at for that token. And then you'll also see the base APY. That's the real APY in real time. We use like a little 7-day trailing average APY. So yeah, what do I expect? I just expect users to kind of explore, learn more about yield trading in general, and then choose your own path, based on what you want to do and, what you're most interested in as far as staked XRP. So yeah, like I said, we'll get looping up relatively soon. I'm a huge bull. Oh, I never even finished my thought on kind of arbing the rates between implied APY and base APY. It's one of the easiest trades you can do. It's available to people of any size, and it's typically pretty profitable. If you play it right, obviously anything's profitable if you play it right. So maybe I shouldn't have said that, but just take a look at the base APY, the implied APY, and then just kind of decide what your risk appetite is and what you want to do with those tokens. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
Yeah, no, that's a great approach. Like at the end of the day, you want to provide all of the information as clear as possible and then let users decide, right? So probably at some point I'm going to ping you in the future so that once you guys are live, maybe we can sync with other DeFi communities that we have at Flare, like Flare Forward, and do a sort of live stream in which we go over the Spectra app and check out the different alternatives because it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, would be fun. Moving forward now, I have a few minutes to talk about StratX. So probably, for some of our community members, this is the first time that they are hearing about StratX. So, first question, of course, how are you doing today? And can you explain to me what is StratX in very simple terms?
Yes, hello guys. Thank you for having me. So my name's Shaq. I'm one of the co-founders over at Stratex. So Stratex is essentially a marketplace of DeFi strategies. And so DeFi strategies, for those that don't know, are basically a bunch of different DeFi positions that net out to a better than average yield than you would get from just lending or borrowing one asset or providing liquidity to one asset. We noticed that people were constructing these, usually bespoke. Some funds were constructing them for their own purposes, and some individuals that were very into DeFi, they were constructing their own. And so we created a marketplace of different DeFi strategies. We aggregate the best performing strategies into vaults. The vaults themselves are insurable. And then what we do is we take the vaults and we tokenize the vault shares to allow them to trade as yield-bearing assets. So what this means in very simple terms is, in the simplest sense, you can provide single-sided liquidity to a pool to get a yield. So a DeFi strategy is a much more complicated version of that with lots of different positions. And then an aggregated vault is a bunch of DeFi strategies together. But then that gets very complex. So what Stratex does is, instead of users having to deal with all that, is we convert that into yield-bearing tokens. And so now all you have to do is swap into the token for, Strat USD, for example, if you want a stablecoin strategy, or Strat ETH. Or in Flare's example, there'll be Strat Flare and StXRP. And so instead of having to deal with all that complexity, all that complexity gets abstracted away, and the users instead have a very simple user journey, which is they can swap into a Strat token, and then they can collect the yield on a periodic basis for that.
Okay, cool. That was very interesting. And I'm thinking about you guys are already on collaboration with the Spardex, as you mentioned, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So the way Stratex actually works from a user's point of view is we integrate into a tab on a DEX front end. So we did our trial beta version, which is live now on QuickSwap on Base, and we'll be launching on Flare for XRP and FXRP, and also the 3 vaults that we have on Base as well. So we'll bring StratETH, StratUSD, and StratBTC as well over, but then we'll add Flare and XRP specifically for Base. So this is, as the XRP ecosystem on Flare takes shape and more DeFi building blocks are implemented by the various protocols that you've heard from today, the more optionality we'll have then for strategies. And if you are in the audience, if you are somebody that's experimented with DeFi strategies or you're a team that builds them, if you're interested in building DeFi strategies and having them hosted by us, then we can explore that, and you'll receive, a fee, a portion of the success fee from yield generated on the platform, as well as be able to provide liquidity yourself to your own strategies. So it's a way for builders who are interested in building DeFi strategies to come and have them populated on a large DEX on Flare, and then also for users that are not interested in that complexity, they can have all that abstracted away if they want. Just one final note: if you are somebody that wants to do very deep due diligence and you're interested in potentially all the smart contract deployments for each individual strategy and what pieces make up the insurance and so on, and the platform itself is very transparent, and you can see each strategy within the vault, and then you can see each contract position within each strategy. So if you're somebody that's interested in doing your own due diligence, you can do that very simply. The architecture is all based on Gnosis. So it's, Gnosis is incredibly secure, a platform that's been around a long time. And our team is, on the development side, is actually one of the safe guardian teams. And so they've deployed Gnosis Safe on multiple chains. So they have a wealth of experience there, which is very good for us. And so hopefully we're looking forward to deploying at least a beta version of Stratex on Flare in the coming weeks. And we're doing that at the right time as you guys scale this incredible XRP ecosystem that you've built here. I just saw the announcement today for the cap being lifted to 100 million, which is just incredible. It seems like only a few months ago, this whole thing started, and the growth is like nothing I've ever seen. Hugo, you talked earlier about product market fit. I don't think I've seen a clearer signal of product market fit in a long time. So congrats to the Flare team on that.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate the support from the entire community and broader crypto space. Since we are on time, I have some questions from the audience that actually some of those I have already asked, but I have one particular good question for Hugo, which is about Flare 2.0 with TEEs and protocol managed wallets. What people can expect in terms of the evolution of XRPFi on Flare once this is live?
Well, I think initially quite a lot we'll be shifting the system, the FXRP system, away from the current system to a fully Alpha 2.0 system. But then my ambitions with Flare 2.0 are quite broad, taking in multiple areas, DeFi being one of them, but only one of them, AI being another. But I think the best way to characterize it from the XRPFi standpoint is I want to enable builders to be able to do more compute within a verifiable layer, and for them to have the option for that compute to be private. And so this leads to being able to build effectively, if you just take the compute component, much more complex and interesting DeFi apps. So for instance, being able to put a risk model in a verifiable layer so that people can subscribe to a risk model and be certain that that risk model isn't going to change. And this then allows you to have effectively fully on-chain vaults with a strong sense of what you're getting yourself into. No one can effectively, if you use the risk model to allow a vault manager to suggest a trade, then the risk model scores it and then says, yes, you can make this trade. No, you can't make this trade, depending on what the risk model outputs. Then you've got effectively a way to really make the existing vault industry, which is big and is interesting and is not nascent but still fairly young. You have a way to make it so much more transparent and so much more within the principles of decentralized finance. So that's one area, I think. Plus, protocol managed wallets should allow you to do things with XRP across multiple chains. I think, one of the chains we are very excited about bringing FXRP to is, Hyperliquid. So that's absolutely key for us. So those are the kind of things that you'll be able to do in XRPFi using Flare 2.0. And then, I think adding in privacy so that institutions can use effectively DeFi tools that sit within a private layer is going to be very interesting for XRPFi. Because I think, we know that a certain number of institutions don't want to reveal exactly what they're doing with their tokens all of the time. And I think that's, there's a huge market opportunity there.
Well, for sure, there is a big market opportunity when it comes to privacy in DeFi. I think that privacy in general is something that it will continue to become more of an important trend, if I might say. And speaking about the future, thank you so much for this perspective, Hugo. And to close this space, I would like to hear from Dhruv. What are you expecting to happen next after Firelight launches? What is coming up next for Flare?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about that here. We have Enosis loans obviously coming. Spectra, we spoke about. Potentially new vault strategies as well too, right? So new vault partners, just really trying to build an entire ecosystem around that a user can decide what they want to do with their XRP, how they want to leverage their XRP in these different protocols, and then being able to actually put it to work, right? Being able to sweat those tokens and earn yield. If you're long XRP, this will hopefully be the best ecosystem for you to deploy your XRP.
Yeah, I think that that's clearly the vision, and we're getting there at an incredible speed, I would say. So I appreciate each one of you for joining us today in this space and sharing your perspective and the work that you are doing. I don't know if there is any final words that anyone wants to share before we close this space on my end, other than say thank you.
I think,
yes, go ahead.
I think just in terms of final words, I just want to say, as we've discussed on this call, XRPFi on Flare is 6 to 7 weeks old. We launched it in September when I was at an event in Singapore. It's grown extremely massively. And whilst I definitely want to give a thank you to all of our builders that are helping us make this happen, I really want to give a thank you to the community for putting your trust in Flare, putting your trust in the applications, in the FTSO, in the FTC, in the F Assets protocol, and in the builders that are building on Flare. This is critical, and this is, you've shown that trust. And, we look forward to paying that back, as many times over as we can.
Absolutely. And if I may add to the community, thank you so much also for the constant support on socials and also in helping educating others, right? Like we're building a quite complete DeFi ecosystem for XRP, as you can see from this space. But of course, all of these, in order to get more people to use it, they need to trust. In order for them to trust, they need to know what is it about, who are the people building it, so on and so forth. And you guys from the community that are creating content around all of these things are really, really helpful. And even if you're just supporting on socials, that's also something super helpful. So stay tuned. We have an exciting launch ahead of us with Firelight on Wednesday. I'll be fully logged in, and I wish you an amazing rest of your day. Thanks so much, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.